It is very much Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga who carry this film. They have such good chemistry and like this lived in dynamic that really you do believe that they're a married couple who love each other very much. There's something really like romantic about that. Horror films are rarely romantic. And The Conjuring has never been this kind of like nasty horror that's trying to traumatize you. Like a lot of horror films are, and don't get me wrong, I love those kinds of horror films. This kind of warmth to The Conjuring, which is really rare to get in films like this, and a real care for its main characters. And I really appreciate that. The Conjuring Last Rites is heading to cinemas, and it is the final film in the Conjuring franchise. And I, for one, am heartbroken. Or at least I was. But we'll get into that in a minute. The film brings back Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren, the real-life paranormal investigators, demonologists. They have many names. And this one's a bit different, The Conjuring film. It's a lot more intimate and personal. It still has a real-life case. It's the small haunting in Pennsylvania. But it's also, half of the film is more about the Warrens' own kind of haunting. The film starts with them as a young couple on their first assignment, their first mission. And it goes horrifically wrong, and Lorraine goes into labor. So there's this connection between the demon that they were investigating and their daughter, Judy. And that connection is a huge part of this film. And then you've also got the haunting in Pennsylvania, which is very much a real one. You can Google it, you'll find loads of details on it, and the film does adapt a lot of those into its story. But it is not my pleasure at all to say that The Conjuring Last Rites is a huge disappointment. I absolutely love the Conjuring franchise. I think James Wan's original The Conjuring is one of the best modern horror films. Yes, it's very mainstream. It's not very extreme in any way, but it's genuinely scary, and it's atmospheric, and it's tense. I love it. And I like the second one. I think it's not as good as the first one, but still very good. And then the third one was a bit of a dip in quality. It was directed by Michael Chaves, who's also back for this one. And I don't know, maybe we're just kind of done with Ed and Lorraine. Maybe there's just not really anything to kind of add to the stories. I think Last Rite specifically lacks tension. It's just not very scary. It's not very atmospheric. Like I said, The Conjuring is. It's just, I was bored. And is there anything worse when you're bored during a horror film? There's loads of jump scares, and I personally think there's such an art to making a good jump scare. And there was a couple that got me, where I jumped and nearly spilled my popcorn all over the place. But they come in these weird clusters across the film, and then anything in between kind of sucks. It's kind of like a musical, kind of like The Greatest Showman. These musical scenes, and in this case, kind of the jumpy, scary scenes, are so good, well done, kind of, they get you into it. But then anything in between just isn't it. It's not interesting, it's not scary. The small family, it feels like I didn't know any of their names. I couldn't quite tell them apart either, because you don't really have time to really get to know them. I felt like the father of the family, I did not know his name. I couldn't quite tell what he looked like, because he was constantly kind of coming and going, and the camera was never kind of in front of him. So if I saw him in a scene without his family, I would not have been able to tell who he is. And that's wrong. And the film did come with quite a lot of pressure to kind of end the franchise on a high note. And it does fail at that. We'll always have the first two films, which are really great. And then the third one doesn't quite live up to the expectations. And I think Last Rites is maybe the worst one in the main Conjuring franchise. You've got loads of those spin-offs, but we don't want to talk about those. They're not very good either. But it is very much Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga who carry this film. They have such good chemistry and like this lived-in dynamic that really you do believe that they're a married couple who love each other very much. There's something really like romantic about that. Horror films are rarely romantic. And The Conjuring has never been this kind of like nasty horror that's trying to traumatize you. Like a lot of horror films are, and don't get me wrong, I love those kinds of horror films. There's this kind of warmth to The Conjuring, which is really rare to get in films like this, and a real care for its main characters. And I really appreciate that personally. If you're a big fan of The Conjuring, let us know in the comments. If you hate The Conjuring, let us know in the comments. We really, really want to know what you feel about it, because it is one of the biggest horror franchises as well. And they did a test to see how scared people were. They had like they were measuring their like heart rate. And at one point, The Conjuring was literally scientifically the scariest film ever, because people were so scared doing it and their heart rate was just going up horrifically. And you just don't get it here. It feels very planned. You get a bit of Annabelle. Annabelle was in the first film. You saw a bit of it, got its own spin-off. It's that really creepy looking doll. And they kind of bring it back, and it feels really calculated. Kind of like, oh, people love Annabelle. Annabelle's creepy. We need to bring the doll back because people like it, rather than that it has any kind of meaningful role or that it belongs into this narrative. It doesn't. And I'm really disappointed to say that. Like, I can't believe I'm saying all of this. It breaks my heart. It's far too bloated. It's over 2 hours long for absolutely no reason. Too much fat around the bones. It could have been nice and lean. Horror films are really difficult when they're over sort of 2 hours. I think 2 hours is like the magical limit. It's hard to justify their existence past that, because trying to keep that tension alive, it's hard. Horror films tend to do better when they're short and effective. And yeah, Last Rites just isn't it. And it's horrible that the franchise goes out on a low and kind of leaves like a bad taste in your mouth. Not because there's anything particularly offensive, or it's just disappointing. Really, really disappointing. And Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are real life demonologists, there's been a lot of controversy around them, whether they're sort of real, or whether they're just scamming people out of money. And none of the films really kind of dig into that. And Last Rites certainly doesn't. It's mentioned at the end, you get like a bit of a text over what happened to them after the events of this. But it's a bit disappointing, even though, we love Ed and Lorraine in the films, mostly because of Wilson and Farmiga's performances. But I feel like it would have been really exciting to see that side of the argument, that what if they're not really helping people? What if they're scamming them? Even if the film did take their side and said, oh, actually they are helping people, that would have made such a more interesting film, especially because it's set in 1986. And I feel like by then, the world's attitude to sort of demons and anything supernatural had kind of changed from, the 70s when the previous films are set. There was so much potential here, and the film is just not interested in challenging its audience or challenging itself to be something different, something new, something exciting. And that's just, I really wish that this film was better, that I could say that I liked it at least, but I didn't. But maybe it's just time for Ed and Lorraine to go and rest. Because, yeah, this is supposed to be the end of the franchise. No more. We'll see if somebody brings them back, you know, because they are very well liked films and people do go watch them. They make good money. So we'll see if a studio head somewhere wants to bring them back. But we'll always have the first two films, and I thoroughly recommend watching both of them because they hold up so well. But that's it. When you go see The Conjuring Last Rites, do let us know in the comments what you thought of it, because we'd love to hear that. And while you're there, you might as well subscribe. We've got loads of reviews coming, interviews. We're making a magazine, and we'll show that off as well. And you can also head over to filmstories.co.uk for even more of the good stuff. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.